Good evening, everyone. Good evening from wherever you're joining us from. I believe you can all hear me. Can you please confirm if you can hear me? Just give me like a thumbs up. Anyone? Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you so much, everyone, for confirming. Good evening to you all once again. Thank you so much for taking our time to join us on this webinar session tonight. We are super excited to have you all on the call this evening. And I believe that we've had an amazing, productive day so far. Thank you so much for taking our time to join us. It's going to be an impactful and an insightful session this evening. So please, we want you to stay with us till the end of the webinar session. Don't go anywhere. Don't go anywhere so you don't miss out on things that might be helpful to you as you prepare to get into the next level or make that decision to transition, whichever way. All right. Thank you so much once again for joining us. And before we get into the crux of what we have for you this evening, we would just like you to please um, get your friend, your colleague, your network to join us on the call this evening. We want to have as many people as possible with us tonight. We want to have as many people as possible with us tonight. So ensure that you get your friends to join. We are going to be putting the link in the chat box. So please and please get your friends, get your family, your network to join the call tonight because it's going to be an absolute an amazing session tonight. So we're talking about cloud, right? The smartest way to get an high-paying job. So that's what we're going to be talking about tonight. And we have our guest speaker on the call. These are industry leaders who have been in the space for some years now, right? And they are in a good place to talk to you tonight. It is in a good place to talk to you tonight, basically. So please ensure that you get everyone to join us on the call tonight. We want to really be able to reach as many people as possible, people who are at the point where they're trying to make the decision to transition into tech, but they are not sure. I mean, it might just be one thing that they would hear tonight and they would just make up their mind that they want to do this. So please don't deny them of the opportunity of them getting to, make that decision tonight. So that's the link in the chat box. We have the link already pasted in the chat box. So ensure that you just share. It's just a sharing, like just share it on your status, your community page, a tech community that you are in. Just drop it there. You never might know what this would help, right? So thank you so much. Thank you so much as you do that tonight. And before we also get into the session, if you have any question, just so that things are done in an orderly manner, kindly use the link that has been pasted in the chat box to drop in your question. It's the Slido link. So once you click on that link, it will take you to a page where you can easily just drop your question. You can either drop it as anonymous or you can decide to also add your name there as well. So whichever one is convenient and comfortable for you to do. That's the link to the Slido question so that we don't miss out on any of your questions. Please ensure that you use the link that has been put in there on the chat box. All right, so without further ado and without taking so much of our time, because I believe that it's been a long day for some of us so far, I'm just going to go ahead to introduce our guest speaker tonight, and I will be handing over to him as he gets into his session. Of course, we're still going to have a Q&A session as well. So before we get into that, he's just going to come talk to us about cloud and how you can easily get in. All right, so Emmanuel is a DevOps professional with strong technical experience with AWS, Python development, infrastructure as code, that's Terraform, CI/CD pipeline, containers and container orchestration, that's Docker and Kubernetes, security development, developing controls, policies, and compliance checks for AWS, and practicing agile methodologies, that's Scrum, Kanban, and ShapeUp. In addition to that, he has experience leading DevOps engineering team as well as consulting and all it entails, especially stakeholder management and business development and protection. He believes his major strengths are his drive for success, communication, diligence, think quick to learn, empathy, and humility. He enjoys the balance of being a leader and looking at things from a high level, as well as still being very hands-on technically. It is a first-class mech engine electrical and electronic engineering with industrial experience, graduate from the University of Manchester. Ladies and gentlemen, tonight on the call with us, we have Emmanuel, who is going to be talking to us tonight on this webinar session. And I'm glad to bring him on board as it takes over tonight. Welcome and good to have you on the call. I believe we're all excited to have Emmanuel and get to talk to us tonight. I believe we're all excited. Can I see the emojis? Can I see the reactions? Can I see the reaction? Are we excited? Thank you, Olaliko. Thank you so much. Thank you. I can just see few responses. Before I hand over to Emmanuel tonight, I want to see that reaction. Are we ready? Okay, great, great, great. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. All right, so I'm just going to be handing over to Emmanuel to take over. Over to you, Emmanuel. We're so glad to have you on the call.
Thank you, thank you. Hope everybody can hear me okay. Okay,
yes,
cool. So it's my pleasure to be here with you guys this evening. And yeah, like the topic says, we're speaking about cloud DevOps and, you know, why many of us think it's a smart way to get into tech roles and high-paying tech roles at that. First of all, just to build on that wonderful intro from Ife, just to let you know my background a little bit. So I've been in the DevOps space now since 2018, so coming up to 8 years. And I've worked across 3 different companies in different sort of stages of their DevOps journey. And it's an industry I kind of fell in love with, right? I've always liked technology and I've always wanted to be technologically involved when, you know, building my career out. But DevOps was something I was never really aware of, and it's something I almost kind of like locked into to some extent when I started my first job. So it's just something that I've started learning, and it's something that, you know, I'm quite passionate about, and it's something, and that's what led me to, you know, start partnering with Cloud Booster and what they do in training people in these things and stuff like that. So when we hear like cloud DevOps and all these things, like what does it mean? So it's one of these things where there are a lot of names, and it almost kind of like sounds like a buzzword, like cloud engineering, DevOps, cloud technology, all these kinds of things. And you're like, what does it actually mean? So I thought that would be a good place to start today. So I guess cloud DevOps is like an affectionate name of like people trying to, you know, I don't know if you know, like when people are trying to put like as much as possible into like one little word, you know. So when you talk of that, we're talking about sort of 2 slightly different things. So we talk about cloud engineering. And to start with cloud engineering is, you know, a form of infrastructure engineering where, you know, you're not directly responsible for the machines and things like that. You almost kind of rent it. To kind of explain in like the lowest level. So think of every time you visit a website or use an app on your phone or anything like that, you're actually in the background communicating with a computer, with a machine, right? So that can be your laptop or, you know, your phone or whatever you are dialing in with today, right? So these machines are hosting these applications. And it means that when you interact with them, so for example, when you type into Google search, you type, I don't know, places to visit in London, and you press enter. That response you get back is coming from the machine that's hosting the Google website, right? So when we talk about infrastructure, we're talking about what are these machines that are running these applications, right? So again, I've given you an example. Every single website, every single application you use, right, is running on some sort of infrastructure. So when you talk about that, so being an infrastructure engineer or a cloud infrastructure engineer, you're responsible for these things, right? So being responsible for these things, you can imagine how important a role that is, right? I can write the perfect application, but if it's not running on anything, nobody's ever going to access it. Nobody's ever going to interact with it, right? So in that sense, you know, cloud engineering came up because, again, if I'm running something or, you know, on these kind of like machines and stuff, say I started a small company, you know, just 10 people are coming to my website, it's fine. It works on the machines I have. But then tomorrow it blows up and it's 100 people. I need to get rid of those machines and buy new ones that can handle that load and so on and so forth. So cloud came up as sort of a means to that, like almost kind of allowing you to rent of like, okay, I need a bigger one. I can quite easily do it just by clicking a button and stuff like that. So that's kind of the cloud aspect of it, basically, like having infrastructure as a service for you to use as you need. Okay. Now, DevOps on the other side is kind of brought from development and operations, right? So now we're talking about these applications and websites. And the idea is that how do we bridge the gap between when I've actually developed and created an application? So that's the dev part, comes from develop. And then when it's actually out there, the operations part of things of like, I know all of you must have experienced this of like maybe a website you use or an app you use being down, they're doing maintenance, there's an update, something like that. Those are operations, right? So that's everything that comes outside of writing the actual application. Like there's not writing the code, it's just how do you release updates, how do you fix things when they're broken, how do you find out that they're broken. So DevOps came up as a culture, mostly like, I think it really became popular about like 10 to 15 years ago, where people said, it's not really good that someone writes an application and they don't think about these things, because an application is only as good as, how people interact with it. Like I can write the best software ever, but like if a user is like, oh, this thing crashes every time, you're not going to like it, right? So it was all about, as a culture, how can we bring these things together and have these DevOps professionals in between that'll be like, okay, I understand a little bit of the development, I understand a little bit of the operations. So let me bridge that gap so that we all understand each other better. And, we're able to handle issues better, and we're able to progress better as a sort of company or as a tech function within a company, right? So that's kind of how it started. And then that's where we get into, obviously a lot of you would have heard of all the different tools. Cloud computing is one of those, AWS, Terraform, all these things, right? So they're all functions or tools to help achieve that goal of like, how do we bridge that gap between development and operations? So now, if you think about what I've just told you, just as cloud engineering and DevOps in general, right? So if you picture it, this is a very versatile industry we're talking about, right? Because in 2026, almost like literally the smallest business you can think of has like a website or an app or anything, something of that nature, right? So now we're talking about a role that is crucial to every, app or website. And now in 2026, every business finds, having an app or website crucial. So indirectly, you're kind of in the DevOps space, you're kind of like, you're of value to any sort of industry, right? So yes, people say, I work in tech and this and that. But then actually when you work in DevOps, you can actually, and I'm testament to this in my own career. I've worked in a bank, I've worked in an intelligence firm, I've worked in a startup. All these are things, I talk to my friends, and some of them have worked in video game companies, some of them have worked in, all sorts of different things. And it's like, it's such a versatile skill set. And then when we talk about, compensation and money and things like that, that versatility is what builds value, right? So it's all about how valuable can you be to an institution, okay? So first of all, just plainly, that skill set and knowing all these things is very valuable, okay? Now, we talk about DevOps being a culture, right? So when you go into a company, whatever they pay you is a reflection of the value they see in you, right? How do you generate this value? Now, DevOps is uniquely positioned in a number of ways, right? Because I said you're coming in to sit with the development team. You don't have to be a star developer of like, oh, I know how to do Java, Go, Python, all of these things at the same time, right? But you sit with them, you have to understand things, and then you can drive processes, right? So one thing people don't understand, and sometimes it might be a bit boring to a lot of people, is that processes outlive everything in technology, right? A good process will outlive a coding language. A good process would outlive a tool. A good process would outlive the CTO, all these people, right? So many things. And, if you read tech blogs and all these things, Spotify, Netflix, all these people, they're held up in the tech industry not just because of successful products or whatever, but because of actually their processes. Like Spotify started the sort of guild approach that a lot of software companies use now, which is more like, okay, we have teams looking after different parts of our product. And, in a team, maybe you have one DevOps person, one testing person, one developer, that kind of thing. But then they also have a guild of, all the DevOps people meet together a couple of times a month. They share ideas from their different teams, and they make sure that things are uniform across the company. And that became such a big thing that so many, companies started doing it because, that consistency and that process meant that people could easily move across teams very easily. And in the job market we're in these days, like, people move around. Life is more dynamic than it has ever been. So people have reasons to move around and all these kinds of things. So everyone is really focused on building processes that can survive transition. And DevOps, that's kind of part of the whole DevOps manifesto, right? Is how can you build something that is supported from when it's developed to after being developed, and is repeatable. All right. So all the core principles of DevOps talk about, the best way to be good operationally is if you're doing the same or similar over and over. All right. So in DevOps, we're talking about, despite however you write an application, let them run the same way, let them be monitored the same way, all these kinds of things. So trying to simplify things as much as possible so that it runs smoothly, which leads to another reason why DevOps is quite important. Because when DevOps is one of the only parts in technology that really pushes simplicity. And the idea of pushing simplicity now means that your barrier to entry is actually a bit lower than a few of the other roles you have around, right? It doesn't mean that it's less technical or it's less this thing, but it means that, with a bit of effort, you can come in, you get your foot in the door, and it allows you to be able to, absorb more information and more, and more context when you're in a company. Again, giving you the opportunity for more impact, right? So with that barrier to entry being a little lower, because no one is expecting you to be able to, write a full website on your own, the best sort of DevOps engineer is able to kind of create a platform, which is why some people, use these skills and become platform engineers, which is kind of where you're really focused on giving your developers the best foundation so that they don't have to worry about the application's operations. Basically, they don't have to worry about where it's run, how it's run, all these things. You take all those burdens off them so they can sit down and write their Go, their Java, their Python all day. So these kinds of things, right? Combine all this and the fact that, again, you can go from industry to industry, and good DevOps kind of looks mostly the same. So it gives you the platform with a little bit of effort and, the right attitude to be able to come in to an organization, make an impact, but also understand that that impact is transferable not only to other organizations in that industry, but across different industries, whilst also not being too difficult to break in. So again, with what we do at Cloud Booster and all these things, like so many people have transitioned from different roles. Like you heard when they spoke about this on my bio, I didn't study even computer science. I studied electronic engineering. So yes, I learned to program and things like that. But, I was able to transition into it, and at least, by the grace of God and, with a good attitude, I was able to kind of understand what was going on and kind of keep pushing myself to learn and keep growing and things like that. I was able to, get into the point where I've, like I said, I've worked alongside very brilliant organizations. I've worked around, worked with very brilliant individuals as well. And I think, being able to create impact effectively, which is all, I think we all want to do. And the consequence of creating that impact is obviously, you're able to get a high paying job effectively. So yeah, so that's kind of like the quick sort of intro or clip notes version of cloud engineering DevOps 101 that I wanted to share with you guys today. So yeah, I think we'll open to questions now.
Awesome. That was really, really amazing. Thank you so much, Emmanuel, for that. Such an impactful word. Great, great, great. So we're going to be getting into the Q&A session right about now. I can see a hand was raised. Please ensure to use the link in the chat box to drop your question. That's the Slido link. If you have any question, you can still go ahead and put it in the chat box. Okay, someone is asking, although you've answered this, so I'm just going to be merging some questions together so that we don't take too much of time. So someone says, I've heard you can't get a DevOps job without knowing Kubernetes. Is that true? I think that can stand alone. Yeah, and go ahead with that.
Yeah, so that's an interesting question, because again, Kubernetes keeps getting more and more popular, and coincidentally, that's one of the topics I teach at Cloud Vista. I wouldn't say you can't get a job without Kubernetes. There are a lot of, there are a lot of companies that don't use it, and I think what I always say to people is don't try and think of the tool, try and understand the problem the tool is trying to solve. The reason being that you might find yourself in a company sometimes that Kubernetes might not be the right answer. And as a good, professional, you should be able to tell them, I don't think it's the right answer because X, Y, and Z. Now, that being said, from a more practical or cynical point of view, if you look at DevOps job descriptions now, probably 8 or 9 out of 10 would ask for Kubernetes, right? So whilst it's possible, and whilst I would say, don't, be very tool driven, you also have to, be responsive to the market. And I would say you don't lose anything by learning about it. I learned Kubernetes after my first job because I wanted a change of scenery, basically. And I'd heard so much in conferences and things about Kubernetes, and it sounded very appealing to me. So I bought a course and I worked through it on my own, a couple of hours here and there every week. And I got to the point where I was comfortable with it. And, I went to my job and I was like, oh, I think this could help us with this and this. And, being that it was a project in the bank, I was told, well, we don't really want to change anything and all of that. But anyway, that led me to my next role where Kubernetes became the bread and butter, and I was using it every single day. So, Kubernetes is hot now, but again, like I said, as at the time I got into the industry, it was very unknown. So who knows, tomorrow something might come out that is better. You don't want to start feeling like, oh, why did I spend the time learning Kubernetes or things like that? So I think what I would say is learn it. You don't lose anything. But learn it with the mentality that, like, I want to understand what this is solving and how this can be transferable, as opposed to I just want to be a Kubernetes expert, if that makes sense.
Thank you so much, Manuel. Speaking of learning, someone here has have been learning on and off for months, but feels like I'm going in circles. How do I know if I'm actually making progress?
So I think that's a really strong question. And even outside of technology or DevOps or anything like that, I think it's something, a lot of people I speak to, we struggle with that once we're outside the school system. Because I think, when you're in the school system, it's like, I learn something, I do a test, I do an exam, I pass, I get promoted. So just being promoted gives you that, accomplishment and that show of progress. Like, okay, I was in GS2 last year, I'm in GS3 now, I was in year 7, I'm in year 8 now. But when we're in the outside world, it's a bit hard to have that because there's no framework in that same sense. So what I always try and do, and what's worked for me is what I'll obviously share, is I try to kind of set goals and work backwards, right? So sitting down now, I can tell you, okay, what kind of engineer do I want to be in 3 years' time? Okay. So I'm going to write that down. One way I visualize that is that, okay, what do I want my CV to look like in 3 years' time? I write that down and then I work back from it. And I know what my CV is now. And I know what I want it to be in 3 years' time. So next year, if I'm feeling like I don't know if I've made any progress, I should be able to write my CV and I should be able to see a difference between that and the one from the year before. So I've almost kind of created my own year 7, year 8, year 9 promotion plan. And that's why I would always say that people people should do. Coming back to DevOps specifically, what I would say is it's all about solving problems, right? Someone used to say a good junior engineer will do what they're told really well. They will become a senior engineer when they don't have to be told what to do. And they will become a great senior engineer when they're almost the one telling people what to do, right? So that's another kind of little framework you can apply, right? Of like, are you going from, again, only you would know from how you're studying. Are you going from, okay, a prompt or a question that says deploy a server showing a web page, on EC2 using this and that, and it's very verbose? Can you then go to doing something more high level of like, oh, somebody comes to me that wants to deploy a website. What are the questions I'll ask? What are the things I want to know? Am I interested in their budget? Things like that. What are the trade-offs? So you need to know that you're growing in terms of like the higher level of conversation you can have, basically. So I think hopefully with those little snippets, that should make things better for you going forward. And good luck on your journey.
Awesome. That was really good. Thank you. All right. So the next question says, what do you think DevOps or platform engineering is heading in the next few years, especially with AI becoming more embedded in workflows?
Yeah, this is a great question. Those that maybe follow me on LinkedIn will know I kind of made a post similar to this about a month or so ago. So I've always felt that, AI is coming, and there was quite a while that, I'd almost kind of put my head in the sand, like, whatever's happening with AI, I'm just focusing on my day-to-day, right? But then there comes a time where you're like, you don't want to be left behind, right? There's people in maybe our grandparents' generation that when the internet was popping off, they felt that, oh, I don't care, this and that. But, we should embrace the fact that we're living in a dynamic time where something like AI is coming up. So in DevOps and platform engineering, I think in my perspective, it's kind of pushing what I've been talking about, which is you shouldn't be focusing on being a tool expert, right? Because AI, Claude Code, ChatGPT, all these things, and I've used them, they can write very good code like Terraform. Even if you need to query a database, they can write very good queries, right? So now you need to think at a higher level. Okay, what's the problem I'm trying to solve? How do I solve that problem? What are the trade-offs? Okay, it's like, okay, I can do, so we talk about Kubernetes, right? So you can host your applications on Kubernetes. Well, Kubernetes will be more expensive than, maybe an alternative like container service or whatever. So you have to think of what kind of organization am I working for? What is their budget? All these kinds of things. Because anybody can go to AI and say, give me the code to create a Kubernetes cluster and this and this. But the truth is that the real impact is not just the technology you deliver, it's the culture, it's the understanding, it's the cultural empathy that DevOps actually pushes. So I think AI is almost shining a light on that and making people understand that more. Because quite often previously you'd see people like, okay, I'm really good at what I do. I know how to code. I don't need to speak to anybody. I don't need to do anything. I'm just going to put my head down and focus on that. But now it means that, if your CTO or your manager can tell Cloud Code to write whatever Python or whatever, maybe it's not as good as the one you would write, but maybe instead of a 9 out of 10, it's a 7.5. It's a lot easier, right? So that way, like I said, I think the drive is going to be more focusing on the bigger picture, being better architecturally and in terms of like good practices and things like that, as opposed to just, the code and the tooling and the sort of lower level things, if that makes sense.
Awesome. That was good. Thank you so much. I hope that answers your question. So the person who asked this question. All right. Moving into another question. I think we'll just take about 2 more and then we wrap up the session. All right. This person says, I read somewhere that DevOps is not an entry-level job, and with the craze of AI, where does DevOps stand in, say, 5 to 10 years from now?
Okay. So this is interesting, right? Because when people talk about entry level, it's a weird situation that the technology industry is in at the moment. Of like, I was talking to someone about this. Of like, it almost seems like there's not a lot of clamor for like junior engineers as much anymore. It's like, okay, we want someone that's already experienced, but the way the thing works is that these things will overcorrect themselves. Because probably like when I was starting my career, a lot of places wanted junior engineers because like, oh, we want someone we can train, let them understand our own way of doing things and keep it the same way and stuff like that. And then people realized they were building silos of like, oh, in our company we're doing these things the same way and no one can challenge it because that's all they know. So that's when people started saying, okay, let's bring in experienced people who have worked somewhere else and help us grow. So I think we're in that kind of sense now of like, okay, bring in more experienced people, let's understand. But I think there's going to still be a shift eventually because, it's father time, right? Like the experienced people are going to go up and up and up. And they'll be worth more money. Some of them will retire and all these things. You're gonna have to then at some point, a lot of institutions will be like, you know what, let's actually invest in a younger engineer, and that's gonna come in. So I think entry level roles, while they might be on the decline at the moment, I think they will still grow. At the same time, entry level and all these things are just words on a sheet of paper. If you go into an interview and you smash it, they will bring you in. So keep that as your focus, right? Like, if nobody is going to say this guy is going to bring value into our business, this is going to be someone everyone's going to love working with, and then come back and tell you, well, we don't hire entry level engineers. All right. So there's just no one path to anything. All I'll say is, kind of focus on success, learn things the right way from day one. Like I always say, the concepts and not the tooling, and be versatile and go into these rooms with confidence that these people need you, and project yourself in that same way. And I think things will work out well.
Awesome. Thank you so much. All right. So this is relating to certifications, and I think we have two questions I'm going to be merging into one, and that will be the final question for this section or this segment. So this person says, what do employers actually look for beyond certifications? What makes a candidate stand out? And the second question says, do you think certifications actually impact pay in DevOps, or is it more experienced based?
Okay. This is interesting because certifications and the rap they get depends on who you talk to. There's some people that tell you our certifications are not worth the paper they're printed on. It's just theoretical knowledge. It's not useful. And then there's some people that kind of swear by it of like, you should be getting certified every year and all these kinds of things. I think in my experience, certifications were very good to me because especially when I went into the industry, I just came out of school, right? And one thing I plead people to always do in life and in general is try and look at your advantage against people that you're up against, right? Like it's almost like when people fight, it's like, oh, if somebody's bigger than you, they're stronger, but if you're smaller, you're faster. So play to that strength. So when I came out of school, I had just come from a situation where studying was the be all and end all, and I had a lot of exam experience compared to a lot of people in the industry. So how could I leverage that? By doing certification exams. So I knew how to prepare for exams. I was ready to do that. So that was a way for me to kind of bridge the gap of like, okay, this is my strength. I can lean into it and I can get it that way. And at the same time, yes, people say, oh, you need the practical knowledge and things like that, but there's no knowledge that hurts. If you have the theoretical knowledge from certification, it's still going to be applicable. At least oh, this is what I'm supposed to do. And it's just about building the confidence doing it. Right. And then also one thing I want people to think about is that your CV, your applications, all these things is not so much about what is there. It's more about the message they project, right? So imagine a CV of two candidates, right, going for a DevOps role. One of them, let's say they both graduated at the same time, all these types of things. Both of them, now one of them has maybe 3 certifications that they've worked on in the last 3 months since they both graduated. And then the other one is more like, oh, I'll learn when I get there, right? As an employer, what's the message you're getting? You're probably thinking that, oh, this guy that's got these certifications is already reading about the industry. He's already trying to build their skill set, all these kinds of things. So think about the message it helps you portray, like the story it helps you tell, as opposed to just, oh, is there a binary yes or no? So it's not the be all and end all. Also, experience as well. Like, these things are not mutually exclusive, right? There's nobody that says, oh, you should have experience but no certification. You should have certification but no experience. Have both if possible, right? And the experience, you can always build on that. Like, okay, I've done my certification. Oh, my certification that said, if I want to do this and this in AWS, this is how to do it. Go and do it. Do it and put it on your GitHub. Have a portfolio. Sell yourself, right? Because that's the world we're in now, And if it doesn't work out, don't feel like, oh, this is again, no knowledge is wasted. If you have that portfolio, you keep building on it, even if it's like, okay, I'm going to just do one project every month or every 2 months or something like that. You have something to show when you go into the room, Anything that excites you, try and do it. Okay, we're talking about AI and DevOps and things like that. Take it away and try and play around and say, okay, I vibe coded this and this in DevOps, and this is what it taught me. And, I played around with AI and so, okay, if this breaks, this is how I fix it. And, there's so many different ways to learn, right? I always talk about mathematics. Like, if someone tells you, how do you get 7? I don't think, there's about 40 of us on this call. I don't think many of us will have the same way. Some people will tell you 4 + 3. Some people will say 6 + 1. Some people will tell you 10 - 3. The main thing is know where you're trying to get to and always take a step towards it. It doesn't have to be the biggest step. It doesn't have to be the perfect step, but it has to be a step. So if it's a certification, if it's a project, if it's talking to someone, if it's coming to things like this, just take a step and go from there and go in your own journey. Don't think too much about, is this the perfect way to do it or anything like that.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Emmanuel. This is very good and very solid. I believe that you all agree with me on the call. I believe we're all still here. Are we still here? Was that a wonderful? Amazing. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, everyone. Okay. Thank you, Emmanuel, once again for your time and for joining us on this particular session tonight. We really appreciate. So right about now, we're going to be moving into the next segment of tonight's webinar, and we're not going to take so much of our time. So please ensure that you stay with us till the end. It's going to be brief and very straight to the point. And so I'm going to be bringing on board our CEO, founder, Cloud DevOps professional in person of Gbemisola Ojo. She's just going to be talking to us briefly. If you have any question that you feel like has not been answered yet, don't worry. She's going to be taking those questions and she's going to be answering. I can see a question in the chat box about SC clearance, security clearance. So please, she's going to be taking that as well. And right now, I'll just be handing over to as she takes over from here. Over to you, Gbemi.
Everyone, can hear me. And see my screen as well. Just give me a thumbs up. Please give me a thumbs up if you can hear me and if you can see my screen. Thumbs up. I'm assuming no one can hear me. Okay. You guys want to answer me before. Anyways, I want to start by saying a big thank you to Emmanuel. Thank you so much for that presentation and for answering questions. So please, if you have any question that hasn't been answered, don't worry, I will take it. I already have those questions here, and most times the questions are actually covered in my presentation. So just stay with me till the end. And so I'm just here to talk about the next step is for you. You've heard about, the importance of AI. Sorry, please bear with me. You've heard about the importance of cloud computing and how, some of you ask questions about AI, which I know these days you have to be very certain that whatever it is that you're getting yourself into, you're not going to be replaced in the next couple of years. So it's a very, very valid conversation. And of course, the other questions you asked as well, very insightful. It shows that you're interested in the learning. So I'm just going to take you through what we do at Cloud Booster, what the next step is for you if you are really interested in going all the way into this cloud DevOps field. So at Cloud Booster, what we do is we're here to support you. We're here to prepare you to actually be able to get your dream role if you're interested in this world of cloud computing. And we do that by giving you 4 pathways. And I'll talk about, some of you are already aware because I heard you talking about platform engineers, site reliability engineers. So I'll just talk about these things in more depth and how we can actually take you on this journey, okay? So what we do is we currently have a Zero to Cloud DevOps course at Cloud Booster, where over a period of 16 weeks, you can learn cloud computing, you can learn DevOps. And then what you would do with those two on that journey, each of those pathways are actually for 8 weeks. So if you come on board at Cloud Booster and you enroll for the cloud computing pathway, what you'll be learning, you will get to understand AWS as a cloud deployment platform. You will learn to build scalable cloud architectures, both on AWS and Microsoft Azure. You will get to understand different AWS services and real-life use cases. You'll be able to build your programming language skills and learn about scripting language, Linux. You will learn to use Git and GitHub for source code management. You'll be able to learn roles as a cloud architect, and the average salary of a cloud architect is between 30,000 to 50,000. So how this ties into the conversation is that you've thought about it, you've seen the benefits of cloud computing, and you're thinking, how can I get started? This is the next step for you. You need people that are going to hold your hands and take you on that journey. You know, sometimes you think about that, oh, I want to learn these things on my own, but adult learning can be so difficult. And that's why we have a structured learning program that you can enroll in and you can actually take advantage of learning from scratch. We teach you from scratch regardless of your background. After your cloud computing pathway, we also have the advanced DevOps pathway. This one is also for 8 weeks. And at the end of the 8 weeks for advanced DevOps, you will learn CI/CD deployment pipelines, containerization. So we were talking about Kubernetes. This is where you learn Docker, you learn Kubernetes. You work on advanced projects using core DevOps tools, and you become a sought after cloud DevOps engineer. So with this, you're combining your cloud computing knowledge with your advanced DevOps knowledge, right? And that takes you, that gives you more skills. And the more skills you have, the more you're able to, you're more valuable in the marketplace. For those of you who already have some kind of background in cloud, and you're like, I want to level up, that's where the DevOps Pro pathway comes in, right? So we have a combination of learning platform engineer skills and then site reliability engineer skills. Again, you can decide to do each of this, just 8 weeks, so you can do the 2 of them for 16 weeks. Now, for platform engineer, the journey will take you on is that in 8 weeks, you will learn how to design internal multi-cloud platforms, understand infrastructure as code, understand configuration management using Ansible. You do more CI/CD pipeline, but you use Microsoft Azure pipeline, and you're able to get a job as a cloud platform engineer. We have people who have gone on this journey with us, and they've been able to get these roles. And then finally, the site reliability engineer under the DevOps Pro pathway. Here, we'll be working more on scripting tools, site reliability tools that keep, Emmanuel talking about, your roles as a DevOps engineer. Here, the kind of tools you'll be learning are related to monitoring, observing your application. How do you monitor an application? How do you observe it to ensure that your application is always available? And that's the site engineer pathway. So actually, how do we get to this computer? Because I can see some of you are asking, I can see questions around, is there a minimum educational background required to learn this cloud? No, there's no such thing. You can learn from wherever you are, right? And then some of you are saying that how quickly can someone go from entry level to senior in cloud DevOps? What does that progression look like? Okay, well, that's after you've actually gotten started. I'll come to that when I finish, but I'm just telling you about how we can take you on that journey. So how do we get you to competence? 12 things that we do at Cloud Booster. We have a structured learning program for you. Every Saturday you come to class, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. UK time, and you're learning from industry experts like Emmanuel, like Charles, like different people who have been on this journey. I mean, Emmanuel told you about how he learned this journey. Different people have been on this journey, and then they guide you. And then secondly, we also have bespoke lab sessions. One of the beautiful things about learning with us is that you're not just learning theoretical concepts, right? You can learn theoretical concepts and pass your exam, but you may not be able to build cloud scalable architecture, architectures that are reusable on the cloud. That's where we come in, because all what you're doing with us, you're learning relevant tools, which is the third point. You have access to industry experts. We have motivation and accountability in place. You have an accountability partner that is assigned to you to ensure you're on track. If you get stuck, point number 6, you can come for weekly drop-in sessions with us. You get to work on group projects with us at Cloud Booster. You're building your soft skills. Point number 9, everything that you're doing at Cloud Booster actually classes as work experience. That's one of the beautiful things. So some of you are thinking, how do I get started? So getting started means that you're joining and you're building projects, you're working on the assignments, you're working on individual projects, you're working on group projects, and all of this builds your soft skills, gives you work experience. See, if you want to break into this field, you need to be technically competent. Number 2, you need to actually be visible. And that brings me to the 10th point, which is about the career support. So after all of points number 1 to 9 helps you to build your technical skills, keeps you motivated on the program. We then give you career support, which is where, we now guide you to work on your CV. We give you guidance on your LinkedIn profile, right? How do you put it together such that recruiters are attracted to your page? Till date, I still get buzz, if not every day, at least once a week. A recruiter will reach out to me and say, for the first time, I was telling my siblings the other day that this is the first time I'm actually having a recruiter asking me if I'm interested in roles in Canada. And I was like, I've never ever thought of living in Canada before. I'm primarily based in the UK. Sometimes I'm in Nigeria. Sometimes, I went to Canada on vacation. So I don't know, maybe he saw my location. That's why he asked me. But what I'm saying is that there are so many opportunities and you can access these opportunities as well. But you need training and you need support. After your program with us, you have access to an internship opportunity depending on your performance on the program. There are limited slots for this, but we always make sure it's a new initiative that because we know that it helps our alumni. And then, of course, our support for you is till you finish. It doesn't matter how long it takes for you to get a job after your training with us. We keep supporting your Cloud Booster. So all of this is just detailed explanation of everything I've spoken about in my 12-pillar slide. Okay, what do we need from you? Have a good computer, a comfortable general use of a computer, and we know people who are ready to devote extra hours to actually practice and study outside of class. We need people that are ready to passionate about transitioning into Cloud DevOps and be ready to give it all it takes. And of course, we have many testimonials of people who have gone through our program and they've been able to land exciting jobs. One is Tosin, you can see on the screen. We have Benga, who had done a master's program in the UK. He still had to come to our program to level up and then land a job in the UK. We have people like Ebu who transitioned from nursing to cloud using our program. We have Dockers from agriculture into cloud, just like Emmanuel was telling you about his engineering background. I also have an engineering background, but it doesn't really matter. We have people who have studied English, people who are stay-at-home moms, and they've been able to level up with our program and land exciting job opportunities. And that can also be you. That can also be you. So I'm informing you about our next cohort that is starting very soon, 25th of April, 2026. If you want to reserve a slot, please go ahead and lock down our super early bird discount. Our program, each pathway is actually £1,500. But if you want to do, because you waited to the end, some of you have dropped off already, but some of you are still on the call. Because you waited to the end, you can take advantage of our super early bird discount. So instead of you to pay £1,500 for each of those pathways, you're only going to pay £1,315. And if you decide to actually do 2 pathways together, because our recommendation, if you don't know anything about cloud, you're getting started, you don't even know any of the tools that I've spoken about, our recommendation is for you to enroll in the Zero to Cloud DevOps course. That's for 16 weeks. We teach you from scratch and we get you to a point where you are job ready, in addition to all those 12 things I spoke about. So if you combine the cloud and the advanced DevOps pathway, you will have further discounts. You're only paying £2,400 for this training for 16 weeks. The start date is 25th of April. And, get the super early bird discount. We'll put the link in the chat box for you to send a message to one of our program advisors. Okay, if you do the advanced pathway as well, the DevOps Pro pathway, you also are able to get each pathway for £1,350, and then 2 pathways you get it for just £2,400. £600 savings right there, and it's significantly more value than what you will get. If you want to do all the 4 pathways, you can take advantage of our super early bird discount. I beg your pardon, and you are able to pay just £4,500 for all the 4 pathways. Imagine you're going to be in a training for 32 weeks, more than half of the year in a training, and you're only going to pay £4,500. Now I have another offer for those of you that still are like, you know what, I want to get started immediately. I don't want to wait till April. We have a cohort ongoing already. They've had their first class last week, but we're just going to give you a short time window if you still want to join them, because you joined today's webinar, you're interested, you're like, see, I don't want to wait till April, let me just get started immediately. We have something for you. So we decided to extend the ongoing discount for 12 hours, right? So this one, because there's class tomorrow morning, you have to make a commitment within the next 12 hours as to whether you like to join in or not. So we have the Zero to Cloud DevOps pathway again. You're only going to be paying £2,000 if you decide to do the Zero to Cloud DevOps cohort. And if you want to do just one pathway, you pay $1,200 for each of the pathway. We already started 21st of February. Please, if you start before tomorrow morning, you can still join class. But after that, we cannot admit anyone to this course. Some people have reached out to ask if every now and then we try to be considerate, right? So, which is why we give this extra week of window. But after this, we cannot admit anyone again into this cohort. It will have to be the April cohort, and you can still take advantage of the super elevated discount there. Again, pricing model is similar. If you already have a tech background, you can have DevOps Pro path, each pathway for 8 weeks for £1,200, okay? And if you still want to join the ongoing cohort and do 4 pathways, you have it for just $3,600. Imagine next course you'll be paying $4,500. So you can take advantage and lock down this and just get started immediately if you're available to do so. Call to action: if you're ready, please feel free to make your payment using the QR code, or you can speak to one of our program advisors on WhatsApp, okay? And then we'll get in touch with you. That being said, let me quickly go over questions that have not been covered. So for those of you that say, how can Cloud Booster help me? That is how Cloud Booster can help you. We have, when people come on board, they realize how much, how much more you're able to get that we don't even articulate in this calls, okay? So minimum educational requirements, there is none. We just want people who are passionate and ready to give it all it takes, okay? If you've been learning on and off, you need a structure. How do you know if you're making progress? What projects can you work on? How confidently can you defend yourself to a recruiter? What do employers look for? If you still have questions, please feel free to put it in Slido. I'm taking Slido questions now. What do employers actually look for beyond certification? What makes a candidate stand out? They want to know what you can do. What can you build? What projects have you worked on? Those are the kind of things that will make you stand out. If you're very disciplined, if you find if you can do it on your own, there is that opportunity as well. But what we give is structure around what you can do. So if, for example, you already have certifications, you have to look for where you can do an internship, where you can work on real life projects, and that's what we provide for you. If you don't have the opportunity, we give it to you here at Cloud Booster. Should I be applying in the UK, remote globally, or somewhere specific to maximize my chances? When you're trying to get a job, guys, you need to apply everywhere and anywhere. Everywhere and anywhere. UK, US, anywhere. You never can tell where the opportunity will come from. So please don't limit yourself. Even if you're in Africa, apply. Apply to jobs in Africa, apply to jobs remotely, apply to jobs in Europe, everywhere, okay? How quickly can someone go from entry level to senior in DevOps? So for me, I think it took about 2 years for me to move from being a cloud DevOps. That's after I got my entry level role. So I would say an average of, some people do it faster. Some people within 12 months, they become senior. Some people 18 months. For me, it took 2 years, of my, first 2 years of my career. So it really depends. Some people may take longer depending on how, but ideally, I think an average of 18 to 24 months, you should be able to progress if you're taking the role very seriously. You're doing all what your company requires for progression. Can I realistically get hired by UK from West Africa? What I'll say to you is that people have done it and you are not an exception. The key thing is you have to be good. You have to be good. You have to have the skills that will motivate somebody to relocate you from Nigeria to UK. It is possible. I've always been sponsored all throughout my career journey until I didn't require sponsorship anymore. So it is very possible and it's realistic. How long is Cloud Booster program and what does it cover? We have 8 weeks pathways, just like I showed you. We usually recommend a minimum of 16 weeks. If you're learning from scratch, do the 0 to Cloud DevOps pathway for 16 weeks. But if you feel like, let me just get started, let me taste it first, let me see how it goes, you can enroll for at least one pathway, which is 8 weeks. So we have the option of 8 weeks, we have 16 weeks, we have 24 weeks, and we have 32 weeks. And I've already shown you what it covers. Take advantage of our discount, guys. Reach out to us in the DM. Does where you live affect your chances? Does being outside the UK limit remote opportunities? So the thing is, for as far as opportunities are concerned, there are opportunities available everywhere. It may be there. I think that in global settings, maybe internationally, UK, US, sometimes their DevOps teams are larger as opposed to what I've seen, as opposed to the African context. So having larger DevOps team in companies abroad means that there are possibly more roles. But for you as somebody who is learning, from us as an academy, we have people who have done our program from Nigeria. They've gotten jobs in Nigeria as they so desired. Some people have done the programs and they've been able to get jobs abroad. So the thing is, you want to make sure that you are good enough, you know, so that you can beat any chance, so that even if you apply within the African context, you're able to access opportunities. Even if you apply with UK context, you can even get an organization that will sponsor you. So where you live indeed can have an impact, right? Because there may be other countries that hire more DevOps roles than other countries. But how should that impact you as a learner? It should be that you're on top of your game, no matter what the country is. They always want somebody who is competent, just like Emmanuel was sharing earlier. Every organization wants people that can solve their business problems, and it doesn't really matter. Ultimately, if you can demonstrate that you can do that, they're willing to, you know, accept you. I'm currently studying in India and also learning cloud computing. My question is, how can I secure a job as a cloud professional in the UK? So you want to make sure, so usually if you're in a different part of the world, like India, they will want you to, most times in the UK, they want you to have some level of UK experience before you come on board. So being in India, you want to make sure that you're very good, number one. Your profile is really good and you have practical skills. So learning cloud computing, I don't know if it's a university context or what kind of boot camp, but you want to make sure that whatever you're doing, you have practical skills that you can sell to employers in the UK. You can apply to jobs in the UK from India. You know, I've worked in India. Sometimes they start out in India. Sometimes the UK organizations decide to bring them on board. So you want to make sure that you're very good. You have access to practical tools you're learning, and then you put yourself out there. Be all over LinkedIn. Apply to roles in the UK, and we have people who get sponsored. Okay. Do we get trained to become mid-level or senior? You become trained to be entry or mid-level, depending on the level of intensity. If it's a 0 to Cloud DevOps, you're able to enter into entry/mid. Some people do a 0 to Cloud DevOps, and they enter into mid-level. Some enter into entry-level roles. And then, well, by the time you do the DevOps Pro, you're doing more specialized part, platform engineer, SRE part, then you can actually become a senior. Okay? I'm an international student. I will need sponsorship. What are the odds? I tell you, I moved to the UK as an international student. I got sponsored by 3 jobs. I did not need sponsorship again. What do you need? You need to be good. You need to gain the right skills. You need to be able to sell yourself to an organization for them to invest in you. We have people who have finished with us as a cloud booster, and they got into jobs on post-study visa, right? And the organizations are like, oh, we're not sure if we'll sponsor you. After they worked with them for a couple of months, the organization said, you know what, you're demonstrating value, we will sponsor your visa. So the key thing is for you to even get to a point where you are good, where your you can sell your skills confidently, and you need people to hold your hands. Sitting down at home and saying, you know what, I'll learn it on my own. I have this video, I have that video. That's why someone said I've been going on and off, right? You need structure, you need accountability, you need people to hold your hands. You need to make sure that what you're learning is exactly what is relevant in the industry. That's where we come in to support you, okay? So I've answered all the questions I've seen. I know many people have dropped off already, but those of you that stay till the end, please take advantage of our discount opportunities. You can join the cohort starting tomorrow, but you need to make a commitment tonight or before 9 a.m. tomorrow. And if you want to join the cohort in April, just specify either February cohort or April cohort, specify it, and you can be in touch with one of our program advisors. I want to thank every single person for being a part of the call tonight. If you still have questions, please don't forget, you're supposed to put it on Slido so that we can easily take it, okay? But if you want to wait behind and speak to me, I can give you a few minutes as well. But ultimately, thank you so much for your time. Please enjoy the rest of your evening. If you want to actually ask me a question, please feel free to stay behind. I'll stay on the call for a couple of minutes, but I don't want to keep everyone else waiting. So thank you for your time. Take advantage of our discount, and I look forward to seeing you either tomorrow or we see you in April. But please make sure you take advantage. Once again, I really want to thank Emmanuel for such a wonderful time. All right, so thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your Friday. It's been a nice Friday night already. Please feel free to feel free to enjoy the rest of your evening. And I'm still looking at Slido if there is any other question. Otherwise, I think someone raised their hand. Please feel free to ask your question. The meeting is over, so I can easily take your question. Was it Bright? Bright, did you have a question, Bright?